Today, I am psyched to be talking to someone who's been with SiteSwan for a little over 2 years now, Eric Shelton from Super Sites. He actually got started with us right in the beginning of the COVID pandemic, and the future of his full-time job was a little uncertain, so he decided it was the perfect time to focus his energy, which he has a lot of, on a side hustle, selling websites to small businesses. From day one, his goal was to establish a form of digital residual revenue that he could grow at his own pace that wouldn't distract him from his fintech career. By no means is Eric a web design guru, but one thing he is an expert at is hustling. He's got drive, he's got ambition, he's got laser focus, tactfully choosing his potential clients with phenomenal precision, which has allowed him to scale to some pretty impressive levels. And he's done it all with just a part-time commitment. He's nice enough to take time out of his busy schedule, all the way from San Jose, California, to share some of his strategies and experience with us that has helped him build up a portfolio of close to 100 website clients. I can't wait for everyone to hear this story. So Eric, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Absolutely, Justin. It's good to be here.
Now, before we get into the wealth of knowledge that you're going to be imparting on everyone today, can you set the stage for us a little bit? What can you tell us about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about my background. I was born in the San Francisco Bay Area, growing up really into sports, played three-sport athlete, played some basketball in college. During my time in college, I was really into AutoCAD and InDesign, and so from there, I decided to pursue a degree in landscape architecture at University of California, Davis. In 2010, graduated with a bachelor's degree. During my time in college, though, I learned and got introduced to internet marketing. So spent a lot of time running CPC, CPA ads, and made some decent money. And by the time I got out of college, I realized that it's what I wanted to do full time and get into an internet business. And I think piled on with the fact that landscape architects weren't really in high demand after the '08 crash. And so after college, I had a couple startups that didn't do so well. And there's some lessons that I learned in there, and we can elaborate more on that later. And after my failed startups, I moved out to Austin, Texas, where I worked for a website design company called Spacecraft. I did that for a few years and worked as an account executive. So I handled a lot of relationships with business owners across the country with their website needs, advertising needs. And from there, I moved back to California. I had a job to work for a fintech company, and that was in 2017. And so from 2017 on, I worked in outside sales for this company. I've been able to produce a lot of good relationships with brick and mortar merchants. And through those relationships, I've started designing websites. A lot of these merchants that don't have any online presence, I was there to help them, and that grew over time, and it got to a point where Super Sites began, and I started putting some real time and effort into this.
First of all, I could tell, playing sport, the competitive nature that you have in business, perhaps you were able to apply some of the competition level of sports that you played to the business world. That's definitely very helpful. I played some sports myself, and thinking about what I learned on the basketball court and how I can apply that to business, there's a lot to be said there. Did the whole landscape design thing, which, by the way, I wouldn't be surprised if you started targeting some landscape design companies to sell websites to. And you're now in fintech, but you also have this history of working at this web design firm. So when you were working for the web design firm, how did that align with when you found out about SiteSwan?
So my experience at the website design firm, I essentially started using their platform. So it was their own hosting platform to build and manage the sites. I was using that platform initially to help the merchants through my fintech job. That was the design platform that I knew, I was familiar with. It was really easy. As you said before, I'm not a website guru by any means, but I know how to put together a drag and drop website for a business that can be easy, make it simple for customers to reach out to them, have a good professional look. But through that platform, there was some nuances, mainly the pricing. And so when I discovered SiteSwan, it was a pretty easy switch for me to make financially. And then also seeing how SiteSwan offered all of the same tools, all the same benefits, actually some additional benefits that we can talk more about, mainly the reputation management that you guys have and the business indexing feature that you guys have. Those alone, along with the pricing, made it an easy switch for me to go to SiteSwan.
So what you're saying is that you were able to move over from a different platform you were essentially using within this firm to sell websites over to SiteSwan, and one of the biggest draws was the affordability of it. Were you using this other software for your own independent services, going out on your own, or were you using it exclusively within this firm you were working for?
Both, right? So we were using Spacecraft for spacecraft businesses or their customers, and along with that, when I was doing any kind of work independently, I was using that platform as well.
Gotcha. And now, so even while you were there, you were still dabbling in doing web design for small businesses, using that platform. You come across SiteSwan and say, oh, wow, there's a cheaper, better, easier way to do this. And then did you actually transfer any sites that you had already built over to SiteSwan? Was that part of the onboarding process with SiteSwan?
Yes. And again, the sites that I built weren't too complex. So sure, it took some sweat equity to transfer them all over, but it made a lot of sense for me.
Got it. Cool. Tell me about this full-time job in fintech. How long you've been doing it? What can you tell me about it? I'm always very intrigued to hear about anything that has to do with technology and certainly finance, money.
Yeah, so it's an outside sales position that I've been doing since 2017. The software, in essence, allows the merchant to provide financing for their customers. And I go in, set up the software for them, teach them how to run it, and then offer any kind of support for them if they need help running the software. And at the end of the day, it's helping the business close more deals or increasing their ticket amount too. And these conversations that I have with merchants along those lines is, hey, I noticed you don't have a website, or what else are you doing to close more deals? And that's how naturally these conversations have got into building a website for them.
Now let's just back up a little bit, because when you were offering this service in the beginning of the pandemic, a little rough at times? Was it a little slow? I can imagine when a lot of businesses being closed down, perhaps some of the businesses that you were normally seeing yourself sell to, from my understanding, things slowed down a little bit. That freed you up to spend a little bit more time building up your own business. Is that right?
Yeah, time certainly opened up for me to take this business to the next level. And that's where I started being much more proactive in reaching out to merchants and not just leveraging the current relationships that I had.
Interesting. See, you took an approach that I don't think a lot of people have thought to take. And that is a self-sufficient approach. When times are tough, when times are difficult, when times are uncertain, instead of saying, who's going to help me? You said, how can I help myself? And I think you deserve a lot of credit for that, because I know that a lot of people did sit back and say, something's going to happen, someone's going to step in, someone's going to lend me a hand. But you went out and helped yourself. And I think you deserve a lot of credit for that. And in the process, it seems like, by taking that time to build up your own business while your full-time job sputtered a little bit, you now came out the other end with a side hustle that provides, sounds like a nice steady stream of reliable income. And does it at all distract from your full-time job? Have you worked out that balance?
Yeah, thank you for saying that, first off. Sure, it can be distracting at times, right? Because we have goals at the company to grow to a certain amount, and I think the goal for any entrepreneur is for their own business to exceed the income of their full-time job. And I do want to say incredibly important for any entrepreneurs out there to have a full-time job while they're working on their side hustle. That should be the route that everyone should take. People don't take it. Some people are successful, but most aren't. And that was a lesson that I actually learned back when I had my failed startups. But to your point, yeah, at the end of the day, I have to still put in the time and effort at my full-time job because that's what pays the bills right now.
Yeah. And something I remember reading a while back, I'm probably going to botch the name of the book. I think it was called Multiple Streams of Revenue. And the concept was that if you want to feel like you have more wealth, make sure you have multiple streams of revenue coming in. Because even if it's almost like if you had one full-time job that pays the same as two part-time jobs, for some reason, if you have two part-time jobs, it feels like you're making more money because it's coming from multiple different places as opposed to just in a silo. But obviously, if you're able to build on an additional stream of revenue to a full-time position, that's the best scenario. It's obviously not something that you can do spending just an hour a week working on. You do have to put in the time, but if you put in the time, especially into an industry or to a business that has residual revenue, you put in the time once and you make the income or the revenue every single month, year over year. And is that why you chose this industry to be your side hustle?
No, it's not. I think just the opportunity through my fintech job and maybe my experience at the web design firm has led me to this. I think I'm just fortunate that it just so happens to be an industry where there's a lot of residual that comes in. Yeah, I would say I got lucky with that in that sense.
Yeah, that's something that I think a lot of people will discover SiteSwan with. That's like their top priority. Is I do not want to have to work for every single dollar that I bring in. I want to be able to establish a stream of income that I know is going to be there for doing essentially a task one time. And I'm not going to say that you could just have a bunch of clients and then never have to think about them ever again. You'll get the occasional email or phone call. But the purpose of it being that you don't have to work for every single dollar. I spoke a little bit about how you really can't start a side hustle that you only have to devote 1 hour a week to. About how many hours a week would you say that you invest into your web design business on average?
Yeah, so let's go back to the time where it didn't become a hobby anymore. And I decided that I wanted to really take this thing to the next level. And I had some extra time on my hands. I was putting in 4 to 5 hour days with it in cold calling, following up, closing, designing, and management. And so I was putting in substantial time for a good 6 to 9 months while most of the businesses were being shut down or the world did shut down for that period of time. Now I think we have some things on the roadmap to essentially 10x this business. And so we're putting in a lot of time now, and we're focused a lot more on referrals, retention, other industry, building out that work or delegating that work out to other people and just growing this team. We could take some time off and the revenue will still be there. But at least for our company, we're putting in substantial work now because we want to grow and we know the opportunities there.
That's what it comes down to. If you put in the time and the effort, if you put in the hustle, you can reap the rewards. But the good things in life do not come without some work. And if you're going to start a side hustle, the reason it's called a side hustle is because you got to hustle. You got to put some hustle into it. So you clearly get that, which is a good, strong message that it helps to convey. All right, so I don't get to do these conversations very much. And I really appreciate you being able to do this with me. And when I do these, I like to be able to offer some tips for success for people who are watching. Because I think the folks who might be considering getting involved in SiteSwan could use a little bit of your personal experience to help them come to terms with the fact that they actually can do this. It's not like, once again, that you're some web design guru, that you have an immense amount of background that helps you be successful in this. You were just able to take some common sense and some practical knowledge and apply it to this. So I think that people who are watching could take some of this practical knowledge and apply it to their, hopefully, future success. The first tip for success I'm going to share, which I think you can talk a little bit about, is to leverage existing relationships. And usually when I talk about that, it's about your personal relationships or your professional relationships of any kind, and use those to be able to sell websites. So where have you been able to leverage existing relationships?
Yeah, so as I alluded to earlier, the merchants that I was, or currently am still servicing in the fintech company, those conversations just naturally happened, right? Where those relationships that allowed me to offer to help with their websites. And so, when you're starting a business or you're starting a hustle, your first customers are usually the hardest to get, right? And so it's really important just to establish some momentum to get the ball rolling. Now, you can't just leverage your existing relationships, because if you do that, that'll run out pretty quickly and then it just becomes a hobby. But, leveraging that from the beginning will really help with getting things moving in the right direction. And it'll also create some accountability, I believe. Letting your network know that you're into web design and that you're offering this now will certainly put some validity behind what you're doing.
Yeah, it definitely helps to verbalize what it is that you are doing. Even if you're not trying to sell someone, just verbalize it, say it out loud. It becomes real. And then the next time you see that person, they're going to ask you about how your web design business is going, which could definitely open up the opportunity for you to speak a little bit about the success that you've found, or maybe even the struggles you've got, but at least you can talk about it and, again, leverage that relationship. So obviously, if you want to make your first few sales a little bit easier for yourself, that actually plays into my second tip for success, which is to go for the low-hanging fruit. You don't want to make your first few sales your hardest sales. You want to make them your easiest sales. Any kind of hurdles you might need to get over in the sales process, maybe you want to save those for your 20th or your 25th client. In the beginning, getting started, you want the low-hanging fruit. What did you do to locate the lowest hanging fruit, and do you still use that technique to sell websites today?
Yeah, so I got this from working in fintech. So when I go to sell fintech software to merchants, the easiest sell was always the merchant that already had software to begin with. So they knew in their mind that they needed financing software. And so I didn't have to convince them that they needed it, right? All I had to do was go in there and pitch our software.
No education was necessary.
Exactly. And so transferred over to websites. So instead of having to convince someone that they need a website, I just scoured the web and looked for merchants that had a website, but it was either parked or broken. And there could be a million reasons why that is. It can be the relationship with the designer, maybe it's too expensive, so on and so forth. But I was able to target these merchants and have conversations saying, hey, I noticed you had a website, something's wrong with it, what can I do to help? And having those conversations, it made it much easier to get that sale.
Not only are you approaching them in a way that allows them to understand that they can get something better than what they have now, but you're also taking the approach of helping. You're not selling them, you're helping them. People don't like to be sold, they like to be helped. So I do like that approach. Now, so make a quick list for me. You got a bad SSL certificate, a domain name that doesn't load, maybe some missing images and stuff like that. Were those like the big three?
The big three, it's parked, right? So it's showing that the domain is still parked on, whether it be GoDaddy or any of these other services that you're buying the domain. Usually that means the website provider has disconnected the hosting, right? You either have a redirect, so a lot of these sites that will expire will redirect to another domain, or it'll be on a third-party site where you see like a list of ads pop up, or just a straight-up 404 error. And so I think those three were the main ones that I was targeting.
Gotcha. So they have a domain name, might even be on their storefront or on their truck or something like that. When you go to type it in, you don't get anything. Yeah, that's a major, major problem for a small business owner, but surprisingly common. Every time I do like a demonstration or even try to record a video using our local prospecting tool, at first glance, you might see a page of results that looks like most of the businesses have a website. Then you start clicking on them and you're like, oh my God, that's a broken link. That's a broken link. That forwards to their Facebook page. What's going on? And it's super, super common. So now you're leveraging relationships. You're going for the lowest hanging fruit. Is it fair to say that your next step is to say to them, hey, how about we do a free homepage demo? Because that's always what I recommend. That's actually my number 3 tip, is to always start with that free homepage demo. Is that where you took the sales process from there?
Yeah. So in those conversations, it's, hey, your website's broken, and you get a response like, yeah, my designer I haven't been able to get a hold of them, or I stopped paying them because it's too expensive, right? And then the next thing you want to do in sales is just provide value. You want to be able to get your foot through the door and establish some trust. And so the response for me is, well, okay, Mr. Merchant, what I'm doing is I'm offering free website demos. I'm happy to give you a personalized one. It'll have your brand and some pictures on it. It's risk-free. We'll take a look at it together. And you can decide from there what you want to do with it. Sound fair enough, and get a lot of positive responses from that. And then, once you pitch the demo, then you can talk about actually moving forward and going live with it.
Yeah. When you pair helping them solve a problem with a no obligation offer to see a homepage demo, that's pretty impressive. And I think really difficult to say no to. Why would you say no to that? So did price ever come up at this point? Did anyone ever say, how much is this going to cost me? Did it ever happen to you?
I would have those responses, and I would just be forward with them on what my pricing is. And some would say, oh, that's probably a little bit too much for me. And, I can, if they're giving me pushback on price at that moment, then, again, it's the soft close. It's like, okay, look, if that's a little too much, then we can work out some pricing that's best for you. But first, let's just get that demo in front of you, right? I want them to see what I can do for them before they say no to me. And so, I have gotten pushback, but I use that to essentially get through it and at least get that demo in their hands.
And price sensitivity is a real thing. There are businesses that just want to negotiate or just are so accustomed to spending as little as possible with their advertising and marketing and stuff like that, and that's fine. And one of the things I always recommend, which is my number 4 tip today, is to focus on that recurring revenue. Some people, especially when it comes to a setup fee, might be a little hesitant. They might have been burned in the past by a web design firm. What's the approach that you took to deal with the setup fee kind of getting in the way of the sale?
Yeah, so it's a part of my pitch. Like the pitch is, hey, I'm going to give you a risk-free demo, and we're going to go live with it at no cost. And then also, Mr. Merchant, what I'll do for you is I will pay for your .com as well. The .com is $13 for a year, so it doesn't cost me much on my end. And then I offer them, hey, this is month to month with no long-term contract. You can cancel at any time. So piling those things on top of each other makes it a really easy sell to the merchant, knowing that they're not locked into any time frame and they're not putting a substantial amount up front. And because of that, I've had very few cancellations because of that. And so it's funny how things work out like that.
Yes. Now, and that's great because it shows that you have your eye focused on the long term. You're focused on the recurring revenue. That chunk of money up front, you said, I don't really need it because I know that if people like me and they like their site, they're going to stick with me. What about when it comes to extending outside of that existing relationship thing? One of the tips I always tell people is to get out there. You got to get out there. You got to cold call. You can't be afraid to do it. What's your take on cold calling?
It's everything. It's what's going to separate your business from a hobby to an actual business. And, I think generally in life, you grow when you get outside your comfort zone. And you're going to get a lot of people when you cold call that are going to hang up on you or tell you to never call them again. And that's just a part of the game. And so you have to look at it as a game. And so putting in the time to cold call and to manage a CRM is everything. A lot of people think they're going to make that first call and they're going to close them right away. No, you're going to have to make 5 to 7 calls to either get a hold of the decision maker, to either move them along in the sales cycle, right, and to close them. And so just don't get discouraged, and just know that the time that you're putting in, you will start converting over the long run.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you can't be afraid of getting that no. And there is also a really good feeling you get out of having a successful cold call, right? Have you ever get that kind of that natural high from making a deal on a cold call?
Yeah, absolutely. So, that's one of my favorite moments in cold calling is you make the call, they realize that they have a problem, you're offering to fix it, and just by their reaction, how ecstatic they are, just knowing that that would not have happened if I didn't call. So I am essentially creating my future, and I am creating new customers through cold calling. That to me is actually more exciting than closing, just because I know it wouldn't have happened had I not done it. And just getting a few wins like that is really everything. And it's kind of this addicting high that you get that you want to keep experiencing over and over again. And it certainly makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah. You'll deal with the no's as long as you get to that yes moment, and it makes it all worth it. Let me give you one more that I would be curious on your feedback on. I often tell people, as a tip for finding success, to narrow your focus a little bit. And I call them verticals, focusing on a vertical, which is like a specific industry type of business. And sometimes people refer to a few themes that they really like. What have you done to focus on verticals, and are there ones in particular that you found extraordinary success in?
Yeah, so the verticals that I focused on in the beginning kind of naturally happened through my work at the fintech companies. So I'm still servicing a lot of auto mechanics, car audio, tire and wheel, auto body shops, tint and glass. So naturally, I was focused a lot on those types of businesses. But any business vertical, if they have a broken website and they're paying for marketing, or if they're a legitimate business, then the vertical doesn't matter in that case, right? And so we've been growing to target a lot more verticals in our general area with merchants that have broken sites and have that need. Maybe focus on a vertical that you have familiarity with. That goes back to the low-hanging fruit. I think that would be a good tip, but don't stop there, I guess is what I'm saying. Once you have a foundation and some momentum, go after every vertical in your area, because at the end of the day, they're businesses.
Yeah. And we're actually in the process of launching, we're almost done with it. By the time this video goes out, we'll probably have it live. The car audio and tinting theme, which is coming out awesome. And I actually used to work in car audio as well, so I have a personal passion for it. And once I heard you mention it, I'm like, how could we have not done this before now? There's so many mom and pop owned car stereo shops and tinting shops and all that kind of stuff, and they're everywhere, and they all have terrible sites. Like, it's amazing. So yeah, you've picked a fantastic vertical in that, and we're going to open up the opportunity for you to sell a lot more sites in that vertical, and for others to sell a lot more sites in that vertical as well.
Yeah, and I'd say SiteSwan just does a really great job, with the amount of templates that you guys offer. So if you have a template already set up for me, it is incredibly easy for me to go in there and create a demo site. And that's ultimately, as a web designer, when you're starting off, you want to be able to pump these things out quickly, right? And so that's what I loved about SiteSwan too, is just the vast amount of verticals that you have templates for.
Cool. I'm glad you appreciate that. Now, I gave you my tips for success, and you were able to pile on a bit. Do you have any additional tips for success that you brought here today that maybe you can share with some of our audience?
Yeah, I would. I want to elaborate a little bit more on, goes back to the cold calling that you mentioned. managing a CRM and managing your sales cycle is the most important thing, in my opinion. You can be excited and make calls for a day or two, but you're going to sell in the follow-up, because when you're contacting or cold calling any merchant, you're not going to get a hold of the decision maker every time. You're going to get a hold of gatekeepers, right? And so you got to figure out who the decision maker is, when are they available, when's a good time for you to call them, right? And so it may take 3 to 5 or more calls just to get a hold of the decision maker. And so being able to manage all that in a database somewhere is crucial. My day looked like every morning I went into my CRM, I had my leads, I had my specific times that I needed to follow up with these merchants. Then I'd also spend time on adding more to my funnel. And I think in sales, especially, a lot of salespeople fall into that trap where they get a few sales during the month and then they don't continue to add into their to their funnel, right? And they don't start outreaching anymore. So that, along with just managing your CRM, and I use a site called Pipedrive, and we'll talk a little bit more about like maybe some tools that I use that I think would be beneficial for any entrepreneurs out there that are trying to get started. But the magic is in the CRM. You have to live in your CRM every day and manage that thing appropriately so you can take someone from an initial call to a close.
And just for those of you who don't know, CRM is short for Customer Relationship Manager. So it's a piece of software you'll use to basically manage everything about your customer relationship, hopefully taking them from lead to client, and even some of them will handle beyond that with customer service. Is there anything else? I know you mentioned something about mentorship. Is that a big factor for you? Is that a tip that you can say played a role in you finding some success?
Yeah, certainly. And when I say mentorship, it doesn't have to be some bigwig or some uber successful person. It can just be anyone that maybe has some relevancy in the space, someone that you can just bounce ideas off of. You know, starting a business on your own, it just helps to be able to get a second opinion on things. And for me, I have some close friends that are in the tech space. They don't necessarily design websites, but just being able to bounce like what I'm doing off of them and get some feedback from them, again, it just puts it out there to create some, not only accountability, but just to maybe have some things that you're doing questioned, which is just beneficial, just helps you think about things in a different way, because you can only do so much as one person. Having someone as a mentor can be extremely beneficial and save you a lot of time and help you maybe steer things back in the right direction.
Yeah, a mentor can be anybody. It can be a parent, it can be a friend, it can be a spouse, it can be a business relationship you have, it can be a former coworker, former coach, it could be a former employer, it could be someone you met through the Chamber of Commerce, it could be almost anybody. For me, I think my biggest mentor is my brother. It pays to have one. It may not be officially your mentor, but just having the relationship with them is something that you can really, really benefit from. And not for nothing, but I get the feeling they benefit from it too, because I feel like I've mentored some people in the past, and you get a lot of gratification, satisfaction out of being able to offer that advice or that different perspective for someone else. Any other tip for success that you might want to share with everybody?
I would say, again, this goes back to the dialing for dollars or cold calling in a sense. Just focus on things that actually move the needle. Focus on, your business, it needs to generate revenue. And putting out social media posts every day or things like that, like those things aren't necessarily going to drive you immediate revenue. It could at some point, but spend time on what's actually going to grow your business. And when it comes to websites, the most important thing you need to be doing is you need to be prospecting, you need to be building those demos, you need to be presenting those demos, and then you need to be asking for payment. Like that in its core is what this business is. Focusing on those core things that actually move the needle and will grow your business. Focus your time on it and spend time on doing it.
I love that. Yeah, the actionable stuff, the things you can quantify, those are the things that you could really benefit from focusing your time and energy on, that you can actually draw a line from point A to point B. Okay, that created something in terms of revenue, relationship, something closer to closing a sale. Eric, you're almost 3 years into your relationship with SiteSwan. I'm curious, are you where you thought you'd be by now? A lot bigger than you thought you'd be? And is there anything you think you could recommend to others besides these tips for success who want to replicate your success? I know you mentioned a CRM software that you use. What can you tell us about that?
Sure. So I would say that I'm a little bit past where I thought I would be. Because again, this started out somewhat as a hobby where I was basically just leveraging those existing relationships. Once I really started doing the outreach and the cold calling and started producing more business, I knew that we could go somewhere with this. Now,
and that's also true, especially when you look at the retention rate, because you say, oh, okay, it's not like I'm taking 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. I'm taking 5 steps forward and then another 5 steps forward. And then every now and then maybe a step back, but you've had some pretty good retention along the way, which helped things, right?
Yeah. We've had a very high retention rate, and our customer value is incredibly high. I honestly did not think it would be this high, but it's been great, and it gives us an opportunity to really take this thing to the next level. And so we're really excited about going into other verticals and offering things on the back end after we sign them up to increase the value of our customer. And so, yeah, we're farther along than where I thought we'd be at this moment, but we still have a long way to go.
Understood. But then in terms of getting to this point, like I said, I think you mentioned software. Would you mind maybe sharing some of the tools and some of the things that you've personally used that you can recommend and maybe help others kind of save themselves from weeding through all their different options?
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, again, just starting off, your goal is to be creating revenue. And so, one, you need SiteSwan. Obviously, you need to be able to provide the value and build the website. And then 2, you need to be able to take in credit card payments. And so I use Stripe for all of that. It's incredibly easy to manage subscriptions and to manage all my billing. And then you need a bank account. I'm not a financial advisor or legal advisor, but I certainly use a separate account for my business than my personal. So those 3 things are literally all you need to get started. And then, so what have I used, or what do we use now? So right now we use a CRM, so you can actually throw that in there in the core, the CRM as well. We use Pipedrive to manage our sales cycle. I use Upwork to hire any virtual assistants that is needed for either data entry or helping us build out sites. I do everything in Google in terms of documentation, workspace, email, phone calls. So everything is done in Google. I use Canva for any type of design assets. And then I use the Regis network for our office space. Incredibly well priced, really professional look for the business. And then at some point, if you want to incorporate, go through a third-party service, or you just file with your Secretary of State to incorporate.
I'm personally familiar with and have personally used most of those recommendations that you have. And yeah, even as easy it is to start your LLC, start your S Corp, whatever, you talk about outsourcing. Sometimes if you're not focusing on the things that are going to move the needle, you can hire that firm for a couple $100 and let them do it, right? So that you can just get to what is going to make you the revenue. So those are great. You just saved a lot of people a lot of time and energy just now by taking a shortcut to the best vendors. That's awesome.
And we can elaborate a little bit more on that too. So as I was building out these sites, it took time, and I realized that I need to continue to be spending my time prospecting and filling that funnel. And so through Upwork, I was able to hire a VA to come in and build out those demos for me, right, through SiteSwan, because SiteSwan is such an easy platform to use. So that's just one instance where, we brought somebody in very well priced, that can handle that for me so I can get back to what's really important for the business. And that's filling the funnel and converting prospects.
I love it. I love it. You've got all this entrepreneurial wisdom, and you must come from a family of entrepreneurs.
I'm the only entrepreneur in my family. However, I come from a family that has a very strong work ethic and have taught me a lot of values.
That's obvious.
And so I appreciate that. And I thank them for everything.
That is awesome. Before we wrap up, can you please tell everyone how, if they'd like to, they can learn more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to our website at gosupersites.com. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook, handle GoSuperSites. You'll find everything you need there.
Eric, I can't thank you enough for being a part of this today. You have really made a big difference for a lot of people. You don't even realize it. And I think for those of you who are watching and pausing and jotting down notes for yourself, I think that you don't even realize how much these things are going to help you. So, Eric, a big thank you once again from the SiteSwan family. And we wish you the absolute best, continued success, lots of growth. We are all rooting for you.
Absolutely, Justin. It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Have a great day, everybody, and go sell some websites.